This presentation was originally recorded at the 2019 SERC Research Review. The Systems Engineering Research Center is a university-affiliated research center of the U.S. Department of Defense, leverages the research and expertise of faculty, staff, student researchers from more than 20 collaborating universities throughout the United States. SERC is unprecedented in the depth and breadth of its reach, leadership, and citizenship in system engineering. In this presentation, Brian Sauser, co-creator with Dr. John Boardman of the Boardman Soft Systems Methodology and SystemiTool, will introduce the newly updated SystemiTool, as well as look back over the past 30 years at systems thinking and Systemigrams. SystemiTool is a systems thinking method and tool for mapping complex systems using Systemigrams. Dr. Brian Sauser is a professor at the University of North Texas in the G. Brent Ryan College of Business. Before joining UNT, Dr. Sauser held positions as an assistant professor with the School of Systems and Enterprises at Stevens Institute of Technology, project specialist with ASRC Aerospace at NASA Kennedy Space Center, program administrator with the New Jersey NASA Specialized Center of Research and Training at Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey, laboratory director with GB Tech Engineering at NASA Johnson Space Center. His research interest is in the management of complex systems. His research has resulted in changing the manner in which systems are evaluated and risk is assessed on complex defense systems. In addition, he is a NASA faculty fellow, IEEE senior member, and an associate editor of the IEEE Systems Journal. Dr. Sauser holds a BS from Texas A&M University, MS from Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey, and PhD from Stevens Institute of Technology. I bring you Dr. Brian Sauser.
Some of you may have shown up today and said, "Hey, where's John Boardman?" And you came to this because you thought John Boardman was going to be here, and it wasn't because I was going to be here. Well, John Boardman couldn't make it. So John said to me before I came, "Can you just give me some kind of homage or something like that?" I said, "Sure, I can do that." So I went and pulled a little quote out of the book that we wrote. Then I brought a copy of the book here. I was going to put it up on display, but I'll just put it right here for now. Then I thought, since I was born and raised Catholic, I brought a candle. So after we are done, you can come up, put a couple of quarters on the book, and light the candle. Now I've paid my homage to John. I want to start off with what are systemigrams. In the first place, I'm going to talk about why systemigrams first. Some of you have used systemigrams, and some of you are like, "I have no idea what you're talking about." Unfortunately, for some of you, this is going to be a 101 you have had before. And for some of you, this is going to be enlightening. So the first thing is, why? I put this picture up here. The picture on the left is some kids crossing a bridge somewhere in the woods in China. I'm not sure. I typed in bridge, and that is the picture I got. But to me, these pictures represent the difference between systems thinking and systems engineering. If I'm a systems thinker, this is my bridge, the kids crossing the bridge. That is the bridge I imagine. Because in systems thinking, you have multiple perspectives and they are all right. This is the system engineering bridge on the right, because you have multiple perspectives and only some are right. I always say the fundamental difference between systems thinking and systems engineering is that you have to eliminate perspectives. And that's the challenge. The foundation of why we do systemigrams is how we eliminate or converge perspectives. This is why it is a challenge, because in the life we live, the day-to-day life we live is littered with paradox. These are legitimate signs. I didn't Photoshop these. I literally found these places in my life and took a picture. If this is the life we live, if everybody wants it both ways, how do we have it both ways simultaneously? I'm sitting in the town of nothing but both ways, Washington, D.C. This is the place. I love this city because everybody believes they're right. I know you cannot read this, but it looks great on my screen. This is a diagram of systemigrams, and this isn't really complete. I want you to also understand, as we go into systemigrams, I'm not going to preach them to be the end-all, be-all of diagrams. It is just a diagram. I'm going to talk to you about systemigrams because they are a diagram in a sea of diagrams. The reason I put a tidal wave up there about to destroy a city that is what it feels like. I cannot tell you how many times I get an email or phone call from someone that says, hey, do systemigrams compare to, and I'm like, well, I will tell you. But in the end, it is what tool fits best in the hand. I was talking to John about this just before I came here. I said, just because you have the right tool does not make you a skilled craftsman. You have to be a skilled craftsman and then find the tool that fits best in your hand. Then you will be good. Systemigrams may not be the answer, but it is going to be the answer today because I'm here and I'm talking about it. What I have learned about life is that we live and think in pictures. There have been many studies on this. I pulled this one out of an article I just found recently. You can view it. Out of Harvard, this is a professor out of Harvard that is looking at this and how we think in pictures. We do not think in words. If we think in pictures, then maybe that is how we should convey information. I'm telling you, all the video game companies have figured it out. When I first started playing video games, I would sit down at a terminal and type in go right. Then some text would come back and I would type move left, use sword. That does not happen anymore. It is all about the graphics. Every year my son has to get the next FIFA video game. I say, why do you need a new one? You got the old one. It plays FIFA. Why would you want the new one? Because of the graphics. The graphics are better. The game is not any better. It's soccer. Soccer has not changed anymore. The rules are still the same. It's all about the graphics. So what are systemigrams anyway? Systemigrams are systemic diagrams. The purpose of them is to give us a way that we can take multiple perspectives and bring them together and understand the problem. I will say, systemigrams do not take complexity out of the problem. It helps us understand and convey a complex problem. That is a big misconception of a lot of people. They build a diagram of something, and all of a sudden they have removed the complexity. The diagrams help understand, not remove necessarily. That's why we do pictures. That's why when you tell a story, you like to make pictures and give people graphical descriptions, because it helps you understand the story better. But it does not remove the essence of the story itself. We do that so we can also tell a story. I'm going to talk to you a lot about storytelling. I'm a big storyteller. I'm from Texas. I grew up in Texas. I spent 17 years in New Jersey, but I grew up in Texas. I'm nothing but a storyteller. Every time someone asks me a question, there's going to be a story in there somewhere. We want to be able to tell a story, and I'm going to show you how we do that with systemigrams. There is something to be said about a 30-year retrospective and perspective. This is a little bit of a play because systemigrams and the technique, which I will talk about, are built off of Checklin's soft systems methodology. There was a paper Checklin wrote a while back that was a 30-year retrospective of soft systems methodology. So this is a play on that. But guess what? Systemigrams have been around for 30 years. This was the first one done in 1990. They have been around for 30 years now. But what does that mean? 30 years? Have you done anything since then? I got to thinking, what if systemigrams were a paper or an author? I went into Google Scholar, because Google knows everything, and I ran the Google Scholar to see what if systemigrams was an author or a paper. Well, if it was, there have been 402 papers written that have used or referenced systemigrams. 5,997 citations, 206 citations per year, 14.92 sites per paper, 2.5 authors per paper, and an H-index of 31. You should look up your own H-index. I bet you systemigrams have a better H-index than most of the people in this room. I'm not saying that to be insulting, but then I got to thinking, how do I put this in perspective? Oh, you said. You just told me that, and maybe to make me feel bad about who I am as a scholar. No. Wait a second. How can I compare this? So I got to thinking, who has been around publishing as long as Systemigrams? I know he walked in the room somewhere. I'm trying to see if he is still in the room. There he is. Barry has. Barry has been around as long as Systemigrams. What is Barry's Google Scholar? Barry has done 744 papers, 29,000 citations. That's pretty impressive. 1,000 sites per year, 39 sites per paper, and he has an H-index of 72. So Systemigrams are on their way. Maybe one day we'll catch up with Barry, but it gives you a perspective of where they sit in the scholarly world. We can look where they have been published, predominantly in books, various journals it has been in. But here is the one thing I found telling. This should be telling of any kind of systems discipline. It is the multiple disciplines it has been published in, and this is just a laundry list. You can see it is all over the place. You can find this with causal loops, you can find this with fishbone diagrams, you can find this with mind maps. Wherever you look, people are using systems thinking to understand problems. It's not exclusive to the systems engineers. This is the Boardman Soft Systems methodology. It's similar to Checklin's Soft Systems methodology, but what Checklin said is that when you start to get into the systems thinking world and start using models to think about problems, and he talks about rich pictures, Boardman said, let's use Systemigrams in that process. I'm not going to get into this whole process. If I was in a systems thinking class and I was teaching you, we would get into that. But I want to give you an introduction into what Systemigrams are. So as we move forward and John comes back up here to talk about SystemiTool 2.0, which is why I think some of you are here, it will make all the sense possible. So here's the first thing, and I'm a big believer in having rules, but understanding that there's gray space in rules. I also believe that we need to have a limited number of rules so we can actually move within the gray space. Having standards or very strict rules allows us to be restrictive in the gray space. I'm going to share with you the Systemigram building rules, which, believe it or not, there's only about 5 of them. But just like the speed limit, they're hard to follow. So, the first one is that every Systemigram has a mainstay. And the mainstay consists of, is there a pointer in the middle? Ah, okay, I have one of these. Steve Jobs says, why do we need a stylus when we have 10? Right. The first node we see up there is what we call the system of interest. Every Systemigram starts off with, what is this about? What's the system of interest? Is it the SERC? Is it the political climate? Whatever it is. The last node is the lower right. What is the objective of the system of interest? What is it trying to achieve? The mainstay, which here is the diagonal, but basically goes from top left to bottom right, is the purpose. When you find any Systemigram, fundamentally, we know what it's about, what its goal is, and what its purpose is by just looking at the mainstay. So every Systemigram should have this. The next rule, it should be about 15 to 25 nodes. You can read the text on the slide why. I put it in layman's terms because I'm a Texan and I'm all about blue-collar laymen. When I put it in layman's terms, it's basically simplicity for understanding. Simplicity for understanding. It says 15 to 25 nodes, but what every undergraduate student does, you tell them to write an abstract of 250 words, so what do? They get word count out on Microsoft Word, and it counts 251, so they try to cut a word out. You are losing the meaning. 15 to 25. You got 26 nodes, and you're trying to cut a node out? Fine. Big deal. You got 26. The idea is to give you bounds to work within. It is giving you that gray space. The idea of 15 to 25 is to give you simplicity with understanding complexity. No repetition of nodes. The reason for no repetition of nodes is that as soon as you start repeating nodes, you lose the essence of relationship. Because just like this, I have two document nodes. I do not know the difference between them. What is the relationship those documents have with other things going on in the diagram? We are forced to have one node representing a noun, which we will discuss. The next design rule: every system has a structure and a process. A systemigram has to be a system in its own right. What that means is that all nodes have to have an input and an output. The only node that does not have to follow that rule is the beginning node. This is your start, and the ending node, which is your end. The ending node can have an out and come back around. That is fine, but it does not have to follow that rule. All the other nodes have to have an in and an out. You cannot start from nowhere, and you cannot end nowhere. It is a closed system. The nodes are nouns and noun phrases. The links are verbs or verb phrases. This is a key aspect of systemigrams because they are supposed to be built on text. We write the text in system engineering terms that would be requirements documents. Then you build your systemigram from the text. Once you do that and you break it up into nouns and verb phrases and links, now our links actually have action or relationship. We can then understand why one node is connected to another. The next design rule is no crossing of links. If I have a student come to me and their links cross and I say to them, "Your links are crossing," the student says, I know. I could not do it any other way." My response to them is, yes, you can. Don't use the response, "I did it." And the other one is, "Well, I worked a long time on this." Yes, you did. Work longer. I spent hours trying to uncross links. Why? Again, it is trying to use simplicity to understanding complexity. This is hard to understand. These two diagrams are the exact same diagram, one with links crossed and one without. It completely changes our understanding of the problem when we try not to cross links. The next one is beautification and the exploitation of typography. Basically, can we use color and location to mean things? I will show you some examples of that shortly. So these are the rules. I put them in a diagram or figure so I can box them up for you. These are the rules, and I put them against what we would call modeling fitness. Those are the rules in summary. So now let me tell you a story. One of the key things about building a systemigram, and is an aspect of the tool, and which is the most important part of the tool to me, is the ability to tell a story. When you tell a story, you tell it in scenes or pictures. You break it apart and tell the story. You start to set the scene. That is how you do things if you really like telling stories, like me. My wife always yells at me, "Just get to the point." She's a Jersey girl, so there is no time for anything. I live in Texas now. Life has slowed down. I keep telling her, "Slow down." I know when she stops listening to me. That is about 10 seconds in. If you've not told her what she wants to know yet, she stops listening. For me, if I'm going to tell you one thing, it's going to take 5 minutes. All the background, why I got to that point, and then it goes on to a side story because something else happened that day. This is why I believe in this, storyboarding. What it comes down to is how we storyboard, how we break it apart. Maybe you cannot read this, but you need to remember that the story is segments. It's pieces. It is just like movies. If you knew John Boardman, you would know he is a big movie buff. So it is about scenes. If I go watch a movie, I can look at a scene and know what is going on. But there might be parts from a previous scene that has allowed me to understand something going on in that scene. We build the relationships between scenes. It is a decomposition of scenes. It is a decomposition of the model. I have a diagram, and I'm going to break it apart and tell you about the pieces. As I tell you about the pieces, they are connected to each other. which in the end makes a story. It is the basis of telling the story. It is the basis, like the script. It is the basis of that, and it is told in a variety of ways. I can give a single systemigram, and I can have it built into scenes, and I can build the story. But that is my story. That is my story. I can give you the same systemigram, and you tell a different story. That is the beauty of it. It is the same thing as if we are going to have an experience. We are going to walk out of here today, and someone is going to ask you, how did that workshop go? And everybody is going to have a different story about how it went. Some of you are going to tell the story. It was great. I got 2 hours away from the office, and I got to do some work on my computer. I do not know what happened at the workshop, but I got to get away from the office. Some of you are going to say, that was amazing. And some of you are only going to remember that there was some guy talking with green shoes on. That's it. But it is everybody's story. Are your stories wrong? No. Every story is right. Every story is right. And all those stories together tell us the whole picture. So how do we capture all of those stories? Again, I say I'm a big storyteller. I love this quote because there is this cardinal that hangs out at my truck every day. And he scratches at my mirrors and messes on my truck. I live in Texas. I have a truck. I hate it. I want to shoot the bird, right? I live in Texas. I can shoot things, and it's okay. My wife loves the bird, and if the bird is not there, life is falling apart. She said that to me one day. I have not seen the bird in a couple of days. Our lives are falling apart. What's happening? What's happening? Nothing's happening. We have security cameras, so I have to show my wife video that shows that the bird is still alive. It is the same bird and a different perspective of the bird. It is a different story we tell. I'm a big storyteller, as I've already mentioned, many a times. Here is what I have come to believe. This does not matter if you are a storyteller or a teacher or if you just have an audience. I believe you have to wear 3 hats. The first hat is you have to be a preacher because preachers inspire. You have to inspire people that they want to listen to you and that you believe you have a message, and that comes from the sermon. The second hat we have to wear is we have to be an actor. You are an actor because you need to entertain. I tell my students, you have 2 minutes to capture the audience's attention. If you have not gotten their attention in 2 minutes, they are not going to listen anymore. You have to entertain them, and you entertain them using the script. The last hat is you have to be a teacher. You are a teacher because in the end, you want to educate. I believe every moment is a learning moment. My kids do not believe that. Oh, there's Dad again. They have learned how to tune me out. They make eye contact, and then they don't listen. That is how you make Dad think he's saying something important. You have to have a lesson. You have to have these 3 things if you want to make impact. I do not care if you are a teacher or what you are. You need to be a preacher, an actor, and a teacher. Then you can be a storyteller. I'm going to talk to you through some systemigrams. These are 3 different systemigrams that I built over the years with various organizations. I'm going to tell you about them because each one has a unique story, and each one has a unique lesson in the systemigram itself and the process of building it that gave us something we could take home with us. The first one is, what is resilience? Back in the day, sometime while I was at Stevens, DHS came to us and said, we don't know what resilience is. I mean, we think we do, but actually what we know is that a lot of people think they know. Because so many people think they know, nobody knows. That is what systems of systems are. Everybody owns the problem, but because everybody owns it, nobody owns it or wants to own it. We took a group of people that are experts and decided to come up with a definition of what is resilience. I said, great. While y'all do that, I'm going to take a different approach. Then we will see where we converge in the end. I did the Boardman Soft Systems methodology and built a systemigram. The first thing that I did was I went out and said, let's go to the literature. Let's go to the body of work. We went out and found anywhere that anybody said resilience is. We collected all of those definitions and we used all those definitions to build this systemigram. You may not be able to read that, and that's okay, because right now it is about the process. We built a systemigram of what the world was saying about what is resilience. We took the systemigram and we went into a room about like this. It is like deja vu. I was in a room full of tables. We were at a government event, and in the room were what I would call practitioners. We had people from all forms of government, all forms of academia, all over. Just a plethora of people that all had an interest in resilience. I think there was about 50 to 70 people in the room, much like this. I gave them exactly what you just saw. I talked to them about what are systemigrams. I gave them a little introductory tour. Then I handed to every table this systemigram. I said, as a group, on that table, I want you to edit this. There are no wrong answers. I want you to tell me what is wrong with this. I want you to tell me what is right with this. Tell me anything. As a group, figure that out. Write it on that piece of paper. Edit how you want. They did that, and I took all of those edits and created this. We created a new systemigram based on all that input. Keeping in mind, there are no wrong answers. We took it all in. We figured out how to compile all the information. What was wrong? What were wrong answers? Was someone trying to break the rules, like crossing links? We created a new one. If I go back and forth, you can see some of the changes. There are a few changes in here. I would show you how you got around crossing links. I always say there's a loophole in every rule. A link can go through a node, but it has no meaning by passing through the node. That's the loophole in the rule. Only just that it is passing by. It's just saying hi and moving on. But you can't cross links. That is how you get around the crossing links rule. We did this and created number 2.0. We took 2.0 and we did it again. We pulled a room together like this, some sort of demographic of people, but not the same people. Just showed them 2.0 and asked them to edit it. And what we got was this, 3.0. This is 3.0, and there is lots of stuff going on here. But more important about 3.0 is if you go back to what I told you about systemigrams, system of interest, goal, purpose, a definition should tell you what the interest is, should tell you what the goal is, and tell you what the purpose is by reading it. So if that is the case, then my systemigram should be, or my mainstay should be, the definition. What is resilience? Resilience is the adaptive capacity of systems to meet and achieve priorities and goals in order to absorb or limit disruptions while retaining service continuity. I can tell you this, you may not like this definition because you think you have a better one, but I guarantee you this is the only definition that exists that was built on the collective of a lot of people's perspectives. While you may not agree with this definition, I do believe it is a definition that is worthy of being a definition of resilience. Because there are plenty more out there. I can accept yours too. That is fine. But the process that we went through to get to this point was more rigorous than most definitions, which is basically somebody that thinks they are really smart, which is about everybody, sitting down in a room one day and writing one out based on their perspective. This is a collective of perspectives. Here is my next systemigram to tell you a different story on how a systemigram led us somewhere. Small vessel security. DHS believed that they had a threat, and it is called small vessels. I live in Texas, and in Texas, we love small vessels because you know what they let you do? They let you go fishing. So I can take my small vessel and I can put it in just about any body of water, just about anywhere, and I can go fishing. The only thing that is going to stop me from doing that is a game warden. I can tell you another thing about Texas, that game wardens in Texas have more power than any other police force or law enforcement in the state of Texas. They can enter your dwelling. They can enter your dwelling without a search warrant if they believe they have any reason to think you have committed a crime related to gaming. So, if they think you went hunting and you got something in your freezer that is not supposed to be there because you did it without a license, they can walk right into your house and they carry a gun and they can cuff you and they can take you away. So gaming's a big deal in Texas. It's a big deal. DHS says small vessels are a threat. Why? Because the people that operate small vessels have very little governance, very little rules. They have a license on their vessel and they're gone. I got a boating license, the sticker's on my vessel, and I just put it in anywhere, and I'm out there. So they are a threat because they are uncontrollable. I could load my kayak with explosive, I can paddle it up anywhere and blow something up. That is a threat. This was a big issue because at Stevens, we put some cameras out in the Hudson, and one night at midnight, we saw a group of kayakers kayaking across the Hudson. That is scary. They were having a good time. It was the Kayak Club of Hudson Valley. I do not know what they were doing, but they were there, undetected, unknown. So DHS says we need to have a small vessel security strategy. They did like every government agency does, and they wrote one. I built a systemigram of that strategy. You do not need to read it. I said to myself, they wrote a document that is the strategy. That is my requirements document. Now, what is the structure of that document? They put in the front of that document a table of contents. I figured they must have thought this through. Somebody did not just put a button or push a button and it created this table of contents. Somebody thought this through. This is my table of contents. Great. This is my architecture of the document. I took the table of contents, used it as my architecture, dug through the document, and built a series of scenes based on that architecture. There was actually a purpose chapter. One of the things they stated in the document, here is the purpose. This is the purpose of the small vessel security strategy. This is beautiful. It plays right into my hands. I told you the mainstay is the purpose, so small vessel security strategy, purpose? I think I can read this to you. The small vessel security strategy is to reduce potential security and safety risks using security systems that balance adequate security, fundamental freedom, and economic stability. These are not my words. These are their words. The other thing they talked about was maritime governance. This is the maritime governance scene out of my Systemigram. Fundamental to the maritime governance was the participation of all of these people and organizations. One of the things is that in order for the maritime governance to work, the small vessel community has to be involved. But the small vessel community has limited interaction with the small vessel security partners. The small vessel community has distributed maritime governance. There really is no governance. It's governance through social interaction. But here's the key to this. The key to this is that at the end of the document, DHS says we have 4 to 5 major goals. Goal A is that maritime security partners have to develop and leverage partnerships with the small vessel community. We want more governance. We want more control. The DHS made something critical to the success of one of their major goals with an organization that wants nothing to do with them. They put an organization in their critical path that wants nothing to do with them. What was interesting about this, and as I built the Systemigram, if you read the document from beginning to end, you wouldn't know this. You didn't see it. Because like most documents, it is written by multiple authors who compile the document together, who all have different perspectives of the section they wrote. And then there was maybe a tech writer that tried to make it all flow well. Happens all the time. Requirements documents are written by multiple people. Everything is done by multiple people. The best engineered system is the one that one person sits down and does everything, right? Because even if it is wrong, you're like, that's okay. I do my home improvements on my house all the time. Every time I make a mistake, it's okay. Here is what we have. From this systemigram, we were able to demonstrate and tell a story of the disconnected aspect of the goal in a strategy. I'm not beating up on DHS because they are doing a great job. But we learned from this is that we can tell a story now on how the strategy is not fluid. We can tell a story on how we need to connect things. We can tell a story on how the small vessel community is very important. Then when DHS came out with their plan, guess who was not in the solution? The small vessel community. Why were they not in the solution? You can't control them. They don't make something part of the solution you can't control. That is what I tell my kids. Don't make something part of your problem that you can't control. Figure out what you can control, and then you can solve the problem. If you can't control it, it is not part of your system. It is an environmental influence, which means you better be cognizant of it, but you can't change it. It's going to influence you, but you can't influence it. That's the passive stakeholder. We need to figure that out. The small vessel community is a passive stakeholder to them. The small vessel community is FedEx to Amazon. Amazon doesn't tell FedEx how to run their business. FedEx says, guess what? We are raising shipping prices. What? Oh, I'll do Amazon Prime. That is how I control my system. You figure out how to work within the environment you are in. Now here's the fun one. I asked Dinesh, is he in the room still? No, he's not here right now. I said, Dinesh, I built a systemigram of the SERC, and you know that because you asked me to build it. So before I tell the story, I want your permission. So I got permission from the executive director of the SERC that I could share this, and I figured that was okay. About 2 years ago, Dinesh said, the SERC is growing fast, and we need to understand what we are doing here as an organization. We got these 4 pieces going on, and they are supposed to be connected. Can you build a systemigram of the SERC? And I said, of course I can. I can build a systemigram of anything. I love it. I do not know if I'm any good or not, but I can do it. I said, sure, we are going to do it, but we're going to do it my way. Follow my process. He said, great. Here's the first thing we do. Send me anything you can send me that you think describes the SERC. Strategy documents, plans, the website, everything. He sends it to me. The reason why we do that is because in modeling, when you model, you own the model, but you don't own the model because you are modeling something that is not yours. It belongs to somebody else. I said, let me do this. Let me build the model based on my perception, my perspective of the SERC, based on what you all are publicly articulating to other people. Because if you tell me something, what are you telling me is your perspective. I want you to understand from the inside what the outside is seeing. So let me build it. I wasn't part of the SERC then. I was at North Texas now. I'm in a business school now, which is weird. I knew when I walked in this room, there were people here that are engineers. There are people here that want to be engineers, and there are people here that wish they were engineers. But nobody in here wishes they were a business professor. Nobody does. I wish I wasn't, but they pay my bills and my wife is happy, so I am a business professor. I said, let me do this. Let me take this perspective and build it, and then you tell me if my perspective is correct to what you think it is. This is a systemigram I built. This was my systemigram. There are a lot of nodes on here. I think the 25 node thing is kind of blown out of the window. I built it, and then I told a story. I got with Dinesh, I got with John. We had a bunch of people on the horn. We went around, and I told my story. I built my scenes, I told my story. It was magical. It was like one of those things. You know what your students are going to do sometimes? You play into their hands. I have taught enough times that I know what students are going to do every time I do something. So I feel like I'm a wizard because I know what their next reaction is going to be. And I knew what the next reaction was going to be with this. I knew there was going to be an aha moment. I knew that because for the first time they had actually seen what their system looked like and how it was connected or not. This is what is key or not. So when I told the story, they were, that's not what we meant. Aha. There's supposed to be a relationship there, but there's not. But they're saying this, they're saying that, and this is the same thing. I know. But that is what it is like. To me, building a good systemigram is like good therapy. If you go to a therapist, their job is to ask you the questions you can't ask yourself because you're inside. That's a good therapist. They ask you the right questions. Systemigrams give you the ability to tell a story and ask the right questions. So I broke a rule, and hold on a second. John's candle is over here. I have to say I'm sorry to John for breaking a rule, but I broke a rule, and my ending node is not at the lower right. I put it in the middle. I did it for a reason. I did it for a reason that I am such a strong storyteller that I believe every story has a message. Every story has a message. A lot of times my wife and kids think that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. And I say, you are not listening. I put the end, the purpose, in the middle. I put it in the middle because I want to show you that you are an organization that has a heart. You are an organization that has a heart, and everything in your organization converges on this. This is what you told me it converges on. Every time I talk to you, you said this. And that heart is right here. Enhance practice of system engineering on complex problems, methods, processes, and tools, active and open communities and mechanisms. Everything drives to that. Once you do that, you have trusted systems. You have enterprises and systems of systems, systems engineering, human capital, and development. You have 4 pieces that are all converging on that. Now watch this. Now I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you about human capital and how it converges on that. I'm going to tell you about system engineering and how it converges on that. I'm going to tell you about trusted systems and how it converges on that. I'm going to tell you about enterprises and how they all converge on that. And then I'm going to show you how it all comes together. What we found by doing this is just like the DHS document. I went through the website and wrote what it says. I realized you have 2 of these organizations saying the exact same thing, but using different words. It allowed us to clean the message up. So there was a unified message, a unified connection, and now everybody is converging on this. It was beautiful. The values of systemigrams, the values of architecture diagrams. I see here it's sitting over here, Mr. Architecture. I think architecture diagrams would bleed out of his blood. The value of all of this, the value of project plans. I'm a business school now. I have to talk about project plans. The value of all of this is the process, not the solution. The value of building systemigrams is the process. I'm not sure this systemigram saw the light of day much past the time we built it. But the process to get there was monumental. So all good systems thinking diagrams bring together multiple perspectives so we can come together on a convergent agreement of what the whole looks like. That is a good systems diagram. As I mentioned, how do you know you're done? Here it is, success criteria. Success criteria number 1, The people concerned, the stakeholders, feel the problem has been solved. Every engineer needs to understand that. Stop engineering. If the customer is happy, stop it. They will engineer till the cows come home. If there is a problem, they got a solution. The problem situation has been improved. Success. I was on a plane coming here. I'm riding on this plane, a 737. Not sure. I know it was a Boeing plane. I know it was not an Airbus. It was a Boeing plane. I'm admiring it and looking around. And I'm thinking about the Boeing Dreamliner and how it had so many delays. I got to thinking about aviation and commercial flight and how much it has really changed. I flew on one of the first 777s. I flew on one that was its maiden voyage. I remember getting on that plane. And you know what was the most exciting thing that was a difference on that plane? Was that there was more headroom above the storage units. It did not really change much. To the engineers, oh yes, it did change. Our dynamics on to me, it did not change much. What we find is that incremental changes are the most influential. Evolution is incremental change of successive life cycles. What I did not tell you is that I'm a biologist by training. As engineers, we need to understand incremental change. Sometimes changing the world with disruptive innovation is not the solution. Third, insights have been gained. Sometimes we just need to gain an insight, even if it's just one thing. Think about the DHS example. One thing. That Systemigram had all kinds of stuff in it. But that one message, understanding that my solution does not involve the problem I'm trying to solve. As I mentioned before, when we are building models, anytime we have to remember that the model is yours. The model is not yours. It belongs to somebody else. You are nothing but a servant leader, a modeler. You are a servant leader. You are there to do it for somebody else, help somebody else. You are the messenger. You are the preacher. You are the actor. You are the teacher if you are going to build models. So this is where my journey ends. I'm 15 minutes early because some of you drank as much coffee as I did and you would like to take an early biological break. Every great journey ends in a location you did not know where you were going. If ended where you knew you were going, it would not be a great journey. My experience here in the last hour has been a great journey. I typically never know what I'm going to say. I do that so I can experience the journey. My experience in getting here last night is not a great journey. I knew exactly where I was going, and it was painful. After the break, we're going to bring up some really competent people. They're going to tell you about SystemiTool 2.0. Some of you do not know what I'm talking about, and some of you are like, thank God there's a 2.0. Now I'm the preacher. SystemiTool, which allows you to build systemigrams. Some of you are like, I can't build a systemigram in Visio. I can build one in Visio. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. I can build a systemigram in PowerPoint. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. But as I said before, every great craftsman has great tools. Every great craftsman knows the right tool for the right job. Sometimes it is not necessarily about, can I do it with this tool? It is about having the best tool for the job, to let you be the best you can be. I always tell my students, I can dig a hole with a hammer, but I do it a lot better with a shovel. They are both tools and they both do the job, but one is better than the other. Try digging a post hole. I've done a lot of those. What we have found with the tool in the past 30 years, and the tool has not changed, so you can imagine what that is like. It was built on a Windows platform, and apparently there are other platforms these days. It was built on a Windows platform, so all the Mac users complained, I can't run it, I can't run it. I do not know what to tell you. Come up with the development money, and we will redo it. Software development doesn't come free. Oh, there's no undo feature? I guess the development was done before there was an undo option. But there is no undo feature. I can go on with a list of things people have complained about. I actually sent out an email to 1,000 SystemiTool users and asked for all of their input and what we should change. I got 1,000 responses, but probably only 10 because there were so many that were the same. Dinesh calls me up one day and says, "Can we do SystemiTool 2.0?" And I said, "Yes, you can. Yes, you can." They put some really great people together, and I can tell you that it is a platform independent with respects to Mac and PC. It runs on a web browser, so it is wonderful. It does have an undo feature, and it has other things. That said, it's 2.0, and it's fresh off the banks. And you are going to find out today how to get your hands on it. We are also going to ask you today that if you find anything wrong with it, it's a software. That here in about 2 weeks, we're going to come out with a bug fix. And you have to pay 99 cents to get it. Just joking. There will be bugs, but we are going to have to work those out. I've played with it, and I can tell you that it is a great improvement. I've enjoyed it. The Systemigram right here, that is the What is this Resilient Systemigram built in 2.0, I had to try it out. The best way to try it out was to do something I've already done, not to do something new, because I know what I went through to build the other one. I can do it again, and I did it. Yeah, it looks a little different, but it tells the same story. They're going to come up and do that. If you have any questions for me during the break, that is fine. Let's take a 10-minute break, and we will be right back. Thank you, and have a great day.